And we're back for another episode of Jofo in the Ring. I, as always, am your Wednesday night delight, Kyle the Spoiler Morin. And alongside with me, again, ladies and gentlemen, Black Dynamite, a.k.a. Jeremy Prophet.
Oh, ever so glad to be here, and I'm glad to be able to help carry you along, help get the viewership up, and to give the people
You look
something.
big enough to carry me.
Well, I think I could. I could probably carry you with my pinky. You know, I got more muscle in that than you have on your entire body.
It's all in my dick.
But I digress. I'm glad to be here, and, you know, glad to help out, glad to help get this show's ratings to where they should be, and to get my succulent, sexy voice out to all the listeners out there listening to us, watching us. And today we got a hell of a show for these people. We're going to delve into the ECW era of wrestling. And I call it the ECW era because if you were watching anything during that time, ECW was something that you absolutely would not want to miss. I know I felt that way ever since I first discovered them. And ECW was putting out a product that was unlike any other and unlike anything that we even see today in wrestling. They pushed an envelope that the big their competition, the big guys, the WWE were telling you they were pushing. Now, ECW pushed the envelope and they changed the game and they forced the others to adapt and to bring it up to a more extreme level. So yeah, they could be, maybe you could call it guilty as charged of doing that.
So I found ECW. I went to the States. My father lives in the States. I used to watch TV there. I'm just scrolling through the channels one Friday night, and I come across the Nashville Network. And we got a bald guy in jean shorts teeing off on another guy with a kendo stick. We actually had this guy on the show, Just Incredible. That's how I found out about ECW. We didn't have it in Canada yet. I think the only way you could get it was tapes.
Well, I
think the internet was just starting.
So I actually would get it through tapes because I had a friend in Ontario, and under their TV package that they had, they actually got the Nashville Network. So I would get to see I think it was only 1 hour show on Fridays.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, it might have been at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, right between, I think, Roller Jam and Monster Trucks, which I do miss that Roller Jam. That had its moments.
We do need to do an episode on Roller Jam.
On Roller Jam,
because I watched a lot of Roller Jam.
Indeed. Yeah, I'd love to see where some of those people are today, you know, the ones who are probably still alive, because I think they even had some old school roller derby people with the round skates still doing that. Nonetheless, we're not here to talk about roller derby, as great as it was. We're here to talk about ECW. And yeah, TNN through tape trading was how I was able to follow it. And I think that's just because we were ambitious wrestling fans. You know, we were able to see it despite it not being readily available in Canada. Nonetheless, they were putting out some stellar content and some really, really good wrestling matches, of which we'll be here to talk about from Guilty as Charged 2000. So when the card started, I think the opening match, if I'm not mistaken, was that C.W. Anderson and
we had C.W. Anderson versus Mikey Whipwreck.
Yeah,
and we had Paul, the new Dangerous Alliance. So we had the Enforcer C.W. Anderson versus Mikey Whipwreck with the name escapes me. I apologize. I'm sure somebody out there who watched pay-per-view.
That's okay. They're used
diehard
to
ECW.
They're
fans.
used to you messing up.
Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't be Jofo in the Ring without some with little bloopers that we leave in there, right?
Of course.
Exactly. So we have C.W. Anderson versus Mikey Whipwreck.
Are you looking for Billy? I don't know. Beautiful Billy was the other guy.
Yeah, no. But the guy who was dressed like Paul Heyman.
Louis Dangerously.
There you go. Louis Dangerously. That's right. There we go. Thank you.
Who recently gave me a like on my fan page on Facebook, which you can find under Jeremy Prophet. That's for you people at home. Continue.
There you have it. So Mikey Whipwreck versus the new Dangerous Alliance. Mikey Whipwreck always came through. He always delivered, I find, especially for a guy that they would pack up the ring and just hang around.
Yeah, I mean, Mikey Whipwreck was a perennial underdog, and that was his bread and butter. He was that guy who could go in there. You could literally watch him get a beating for an entire match and then manage to rally, make a comeback, and win. And that's what was cool about Mikey Whipwreck, is that he was a cool underdog, you know? And I think having characters like that in wrestling, it's a great thing because you never know if they're going to win or they're going to lose. You know, there's an aspect of vulnerability to the Mikey Whipwreck character. In a lot of ways, I kind of see Mikey Whipwreck as sort of like a prototype Spike Dudley, who was main eventing this event. I'm sure we'll get to that before our time is over, because it is the main event and we are professionals. But with that said, Mikey Whipwreck, he was great at being that underdog, and every match it felt like anyone could beat him, but you always had that doubt that, you know, maybe he's going to pull it off. So to me, it's what made honestly, what I find to be the most boring part of matches, which is the heat, intriguing because you never knew, is this guy going to score a roll-up? Is he going to hit his finisher out of nowhere and then it's over? So that to me was something that I found really cool about Mikey Whipwreck. I actually got the chance to be on the same show with Mikey Whipwreck. He was here for IWS, one of the last shows that we did. I think that was at Club Soda. Or it might have been at Metropolis, actually, where he took on, Mikey Whipwreck was in the corner of Tajiri, who took on Mike Bailey. And I almost didn't recognize him. In fact, he actually kind of looked like you.
Shout out to Speedball Mike Bailey, by the way, friend of the show.
Best of the best. But yeah, he actually kind of looked like you. You know, he was bald and
good looking.
You know, let's not kid our audience here.
In shape.
But what are you going to say? Well hung next?
Well, rounds of shape.
Indeed, it is. So yeah, he looked a little bit different, but again, it was cool to see him. The show had a pretty good ECW kind of feel to it. You know, Tajiri was on it, little Guido. And of course, Mikey Whipwreck. And yeah, you know, anytime you get to see him, like I said, over and over, he was a great underdog and the kind of character you don't see very much in mainstream wrestling today.
Yeah. Well, like you said, they're doing the underdog thing. It was great. Mikey Whipwreck took one hell of a bump during that match. He was on the apron and he ate a super kick from C.W. Anderson that took him from the ring apron over the barrier. You weren't getting that on Monday Night Raw.
Well, Mikey Whipwreck knew that, you know, people paid to see him
Yeah.
get a beating. And that was part of the appeal of it. And whenever a wrestler, and I know we talked about this a bit off the air, but you know, you said, when is something too risky or too unsafe? It's always a case of risk versus reward. It's, okay, I could take this big risk, but what's the payoff going to be? Is it going to impress the fans? Is it going to impress management? You know, am I in this storyline that's going to require me to, you know, to pretty much bump my ass off to get the respect of the people? And a lot of times, guys going into a company like ECW or a lot of other companies, if you know that you can go and you can take a beating, it's something that you want to put on display. You know, that can kind of be your calling card that, hey, you know, this guy takes a licking, but he keeps on ticking. And that's a surefire way to always get respect with fans. You know, nowadays, a lot of wrestlers, you know, they hold back a little. They're a little safer. They're a little more fragile. And yeah, safety is part of the business. But if you know that you can go out there and you can make it look like, you know, you're dying and still be safe, it's definitely something that resonates with the audience because we all get hurt. We all fall down, you know, even just trying to walk around outside in these harsh winter conditions that we have here in Montreal. You could easily slip and fall anytime and crack your tailbone. So it's something that resonates with the people. And I think Mikey Whipwreck was very self-aware and knew that. And that's why he would go the extra mile when it came to those kinds of bumps.
I think everybody on this pay-per-view just went the extra mile for just, ugh.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, when we had Just Incredible on here talking about it and saying how Paul Heyman was a great motivator, and I don't doubt that. I mean, he said he could literally tell you anything, and you know, if he told you to jump off the roof of the ECW arena and you know it'll make you a big star, you know, he had a way of doing it that would make people want to actually do things that they otherwise wouldn't. But I think that speaks to any leader in a promotion, in a wrestling federation, that you know you need to be able to get your talent to mobilize and to perform at the level that the people expect. You know, we always like to give a shout out to our friends there, the Dirty Heels, and they say you got to give the people what they want. And damn it, it's something that more people should be doing. And ECW did exactly that. That's why we're still talking about this 20 years later. Because even in the opening match, they would give the people violence and excitement. And then you know, hey, wow, this match was awesome. Now we got a whole 6, 7 more matches to sit through. And this is the opener? I mean, that's how you want to feel going to a wrestling show. I mean, how many times do you turn on today's wrestling, let's say, you know, Monday Night Raw, and you see the first match, and you say, wow, what a show this is going to be. This is the first match. I can't think of the last time.
Never happens.
And that speaks to, you know, the different era that we're living in now where ratings are a lot lower and people are choosing to watch Monday Night Football instead.
Yep, well, thankfully we had wrestling back then, because if we were growing up now and we had to grow up with the crap that's being put out now, it's mine, unless, you know.
I mean,
I'm not talking about your work, your body of work.
And for those of you listening to us out there, you know, Kyle is just so irate about the state of today's professional wrestling that he's tripping over his words.
Fucking
spit is going flying all over the microphone, all over my sunglasses.
That's why he's wearing the glasses.
This is what I have to put up with, people. That's okay. I do it all for you because we got to give the people what they want.
Shout out to the Dirty Heels. Go like and subscribe to their shit. Now, on commentary, we had Cyrus, a.k.a. from WWE, the Jackal,
wearing a white glove.
Don Callis.
Looking like he's about to give Joey Styles an enema there right at the top of the show, but that's okay. You know, the invisible hand.
And that's why it's invisible.
Yeah.
We had Joey Styles, obviously one of the most underrated fucking announcers, underutilized announcers of all time.
And I can't say enough good about Joey Styles, as I've said probably on here before, maybe off air. You know, he should have been the heir apparent to Jim Ross in the WWE.
Yep.
Unfortunately, they felt maybe his skills were better off on WWE.com, and then eventually they just put him out to pasture. But nonetheless, Joey Styles, I think one of the greatest commentators, and never really fully got to be in the position I think that he deserved. Someone of his skill set and expertise deserved to be in.
He can sell the hell out of a match, though. Like, holy shit. One thing, though, that I liked about this little pairing with the announce team is that they were using wrestling lingo the entire time. Like, they were saying heat. They were saying pop. They were saying cheap heat. They were using wrestling lingo when it wasn't really like a thing. Like, announcers don't even do that now. Not even AEW, for all you WWE haters. They don't even do that. What's your take on that? How do you feel about that?
I think it's all right for the time. I mean, look, times are changing and you got to push the envelope. And so, you know, it's naive to think that in the year 2000, not everyone knows what's up in the professional wrestling game. That, you know, hey, look, they had a TV special on NBC, if I'm not mistaken, called Expose the Secrets of Professional Wrestling. That's how I learned everything. Well, it's not actually how I learned everything, but, you know, anyone who watched that knows the state of the business. You know, when you have the Montreal Screwjob and you have Vince McMahon literally coming out and saying, hey, you know, what you see is, you know, scripted events and these kinds of things. You can't take the audience's intelligence for granted. You can't treat them like they're a bunch of knuckle dragon Neanderthals that are oxygen deprived and living off of minimal amounts of brain cells here. So yeah, if you're letting the people in on some of the things going on, all the better. You know, those who know will know, and those who don't know, they don't know. No harm, no foul, if you ask me.
It's a very good point. So match number...
When do I not have a good point?
That's true.
Come on, man.
Match number 2, we had Dastardly Danny Doring.
You can do your best to make the people at home not see that you're reading it.
No, they know I'm reading it. I read everything. I have a bad memory. Everybody knows this.
Well, at least, folks, you know this man is literate.
Yes, 100%. I'm actually
Break. At least he puts work into it.
just
At
all.
least he
It's
puts
just
notes,
it's all
yeah.
pictures. Actually, I can't read.
No.
I went to LaSalle for school. So up next we have Dastardly Danny Doring. We got Roadkill and Simon Diamond versus Nova, aka Simon Dean from the WWE. I actually forgot that he was Nova. It always slips my mind because when I saw him, I was like, "Holy shit, the fucking Simon system!"
Yeah.
And then I remember Nova, or aka Hollywood Nova from the BWO.
It's two very different characters. I mean,
Yeah.
I knew of him as Nova, and I would read the internet, so I knew when he was coming in as Simon Dean that he had already been working in OVW as Nova. And so to me, it's always kind of been the same guy, and it's cool to see someone with that kind of range. I mean, I'm a little biased, as you probably know, because he's someone who actually helped me out a lot in my career. I actually think very highly of Mike Bucci. This was a guy who literally saw me and pretty much said, how is it that you haven't had a tryout with the WWE? Give me your information, and I'll make sure I get it to them. So, in a career where I've not had many people actually help me out, hence why I'm still here, along with the fact that, maybe I wasn't born in the right country, but I love it here and I love our healthcare. Mike Bucci definitely helped me out a lot, and I think that he was a great underrated talent. And, he always delivers, just like in this match here, guilty as charged.
Yeah, and he was teaming with Kid Kash, who had a broken jaw, wired it shut for the match, and their partner was Jazz.
And it was a good step in the right direction towards intergender wrestling. And Jazz was someone who she could go flat out.
Yeah.
I mean, look, when I would see Jazz wrestle, it wasn't a man or woman thing. It was oftentimes she looked more deadly than the guys they were putting her in there with. And it's cool for me to see Jazz, especially as a woman of color, be able to reach such a level of success and stardom in ECW and in the wrestling business in general. She recently started doing some matches for Impact Wrestling. We thought she had retired, but came back, looked better than ever, and power to her, because she was definitely a pioneer in a lot of ways. And seeing her in this match is really no exception. Even back then, she had the talent, she had the tools, she had the look, she had the swagger. I was all about Jazz when I watched ECW. She was very inspiring to a young me.
Yeah, I remember when she showed up in WWE and was just manhandling Trish every week. I was like, who is this monster?
Yeah.
And then you go back and you look into ECW and you realize that WWE isn't the be-all, end-all of wrestling. There's other stuff out there, folks.
And what's great with Jazz is that some people in wrestling, they need a certain level of booking to protect them. Paul Heyman is noted throughout the wrestling industry as being someone who can accentuate the strengths while totally hiding someone's weaknesses. And Jazz was a case where, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have to put her in matches that protected her and these kinds of things. She could flat out go.
Yeah.
She brought it. And she had a level of intensity that, hell, I wish everybody, had that level of intensity like Jazz. And that's why those matches with her and Trish Stratus and her and Lita and everyone else, they meant something, because here was this girl who was just straight up killer. And you'd wonder, how is the bleach blonde Barbie type going to be able to handle this? And that's why she rose to the top, and she was a mainstay for so long. And like I said, it's amazing to see her still going, still appearing in a major company today, because she was very much a pioneer. And if you ask me, I know, Francine gets a lot of love in ECW. Well, I think Francine was great. I enjoyed her presence on screen. But when I think of women that made the biggest impact in ECW, it was Jazz, for stepping in that ring and getting her hands dirty and putting a beating on tons of those guys. So that, to me, first class.
And she looked like she was like laying in, like she was just laying in those shots too. Like I feel like they were like afterwards they were just like maybe
oh yeah,
maybe ease up.
You would have never survived 10 seconds in there with Jazz. She would have mopped the floor with you.
Absolutely. Even now, I think she'll still mop the floor with me.
Oh, of course. I mean, if you couldn't handle that one little sissy chop that I gave you, I don't think that you'd survive even, even half a match, even a tag team match, even a 6-man tag against Jazz, much like this one.
I'll take Jazz in a back alley brawl right now. Right now. You heard it here first, folks. So up next, moving on, we have Tajiri out in the ring with Steve Corino. Now, they started this off with Steve Corino just kind of because Tajiri was supposed to have a mystery partner. So Steve Corino, he cuts a promo. They bring out Super Crazy. Now, everybody thinks that Super Crazy is Tajiri's opponent, but then Steve Corino flips it on him and says, I chose Super Crazy to be Tajiri's partner because I run shit here in ECW, which caused Nunzia, a.k.a. Little Guido, to come out with a frequenter of the Balboa Bakery, Big Sal.
Wait, did you just say Balboa Bakery?
I did just say Balboa Bakery. You know it?
Of course. I mean, if you don't know Balboa Bakery, who are you? That's the place to be. If you want cannolis, if you want all kinds of baked goods. I hear they even have pizzas, which, I can allow myself to maybe have one day a week because, I don't want to turn into you. But I can allow it for one day. If that's what you're looking for, Balboa Bakery is the place to go. Why don't you hit them with the address?
That's 102 Saint Jean Baptiste, Local 52. Tell them Jofo in the ring sent you.
Yep, and say hi to the cannoli boss for me.
Shout out to Big Joe. Big Sal. He comes down to the ring. Steve Corino shooting his mouth off. But then Paul Heyman comes out and says, you don't run shit in ECW. I run shit. And it's going to be Little Guido and Jerry Lynn. And they bring out the new effing show, Jerry Lynn, to team up, go against Super Crazy and Tajiri. Great match. I was a big Jerry Lynn fan back in the day.
I mean, that's a lot of talent in one match. And yeah, I was a big fan of Jerry Lynn too. And I shouldn't even say was, because I am a fan of Jerry Lynn. Very rarely have I seen him in any kind of a bad match. And his work in ECW was fantastic. His match and matches with Rob Van Dam still stick out in my mind as some of the first matches I saw and really went like, wow, the wrestling game has evolved. It's hit a next level. Like, these guys are just, really putting those other guys in the bigger companies, probably making more money, really to shame. But yeah, Jerry Lynn, the new effing show, he was outstanding. And even in TNA, I remember in the early days when they had the X Division, he was in there with, a lot of the young guys, Amazing Red, AJ Styles, who was still pretty new at the time. And he was having banger matches with those guys too. Jerry Lynn, really, really timeless. Even if you go back to when he was in WCW, wrestling under a hood as Mr. JL, you could see that, like, this guy, the talent was there, the brute talent, and he just evolved and got better and better in every aspect of his wrestling. And I never once saw a Jerry Lynn match that didn't entertain me.
Yeah, no, he was fantastic. Like you said, those matches with RVD, I think it was for the TV title back then.
Yeah.
Even when he came to WWE, I was super excited too.
Yeah, they gave him that run with the Cruiserweight title, but I don't think they realized what kind of a commodity they had in Jerry Lynn. I think that really he came in during that infamous steroid era, as the Green Phantom told us about. And I think that his size probably is what held him back, and that's why they relegated him to a cruiserweight when, at the time, I mean, imagine some of these matches they deprived us of, like Jerry Lynn against Chris Jericho, Jerry Lynn against Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, and the list goes on and on. It was a shame he was relegated just to the cruiserweights with, Crash Holly and Scotty 2 Hotty, when he could have been so much more. It's almost like they didn't scrutinize his body of work to know what he was capable of, because much like we talked about with Rob Van Dam and how they treated him at the start, Jerry Lynn, Rob Van Dam, the whole effing show, Jerry Lynn, the new effing show, he could have been in the mix with all of those top guys at the time. Unfortunately, WWE, they have their shortcomings, and being able to spot talent and utilize them to the best of their abilities has not always been their calling card.
Case in point.
Hey, I'm not saying anything the people don't already know.
So this match ends. Like I said at the beginning, we had Tajiri and Super Crazy were supposed to go against each other, but Steve Corino flipped the script and teamed them up. So at the end of the match, Guido turns on Jerry Lynn and everybody jumps him. And then Tajiri gets the pin. Wild. So Steve Corino, I know his son wrestles in Catalyst Wrestling. Shout out to Catalyst Wrestling. I think you've wrestled Steve a time or two, if I'm not mistaken.
I have wrestled Steve Corino once, and at the time, it was actually his retirement match. That's a match, very rare match. I don't even have the footage of it. If someone else does, all the better. I'd love to see it. It was myself, Steve Corino, and a fellow by the name of Kevin Steen in a triple threat match for a company called SWR. That's Kevin Owens, for those of you who don't know. And if you don't know, what kind of wrestling fan are you, really?
What are you doing here?
But yeah, that was like the end of the road for Steve Corino. And yeah, I see that he's kind of, he's come back. He's, I believe he was an agent for NXT. I kind of thought he was still doing that, but I don't really keep up with what's new with Steve Corino. But I will say it was an honor to get to share the ring with him. I remember watching him in ECW. Saw him in some really bloody hardcore matches. And if he's ever willing to get back in, I'd be willing to get back in with him, and we can always run it back. Or if his son wants to follow in his dad's footsteps, hey, I don't mind getting in there with him too. I hear he's a champion. I hear he's catching on. And, no one ever calls me out, but I'm no stranger to calling people out because I think that my skills match up with the very best in this world. So, yeah, it would be an honor, to do to the son what I did to the father. And we could take it from there and have some good business.
Well, Steve Corino at the end of the match, he starts cutting a promo on Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream. Now, it's the year 2000. We're in ECW. You're not thinking about Dusty Rhodes. You're not thinking about the American Dream, baby, in ECW. But who comes out? Dusty fucking Rhodes just comes out, bionic elbows everybody in the ring. It was insane. I didn't see it coming.
I think it was probably more something to please the people in that area. Let's not forget this was taking place in Alabama. Was it Birmingham?
Battle something. No, it was the Battle Arena, I think. Alabama.
It was in Alabama, nonetheless.
Birmingham.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised we didn't see a couple Confederate flags out there in the crowd. But all that to say, Dusty Rhodes, Alabama was an NWA territory. And, I don't doubt Dusty had himself quite a few battles there. So I'm sure that it was a great live pop for the audience and for the people watching at home that, ECW, anything could happen. That used to be a slogan, in the WWF at the time that, anything can happen. And you watch today's product and it's a far cry from that. I mean, you're the spoiler, and I doubt you're the spoiler because you're clairvoyant. You're the spoiler probably because you've been watching for a long time and the show hasn't really evolved. It's still the hamster turning in the wheel, kind of stationary, and that's it. But all that to say, ECW always had that cool feeling of you never know what could happen. And that match was a good example of it because you thought that you were going to get something, and then by the end, you had something totally different. And I think that's what makes for the coolest television, when it's totally unpredictable, when you don't just, watch the match and say, oh, well, I know how this is going to end. I know this guy's not going to win. So that's something that's kind of missing in wrestling right now in certain companies. But they always delivered. It was one of the main reasons why I enjoyed watching, because I really felt like, watching these matches. For one, ECW, extreme. So you're not going to see a BS disqualification finish. You're going to get an actual finish to the match. There must be a winner. That in itself makes for interesting television because now there really is, okay, well, who's going to win? Who's going to win? It's not just the writers taking an easy way out by doing a DQ or a count out. Then you had all the unpredictability. You didn't know, are the fans going to throw chairs in the ring? Are there going to be weapons in the match? Because really anything goes anytime. Yeah. So there's a lot that you can do. It creates a whole new universe, a whole environment that's at the disposal of the performers. I personally think I would have loved to be in ECW back in the day. And, with certain companies like here, IWS, it's a hardcore company. So we have a lot of the same freedoms, and it just allows us to express our creativity when we're in there to be able to make sure that we're giving the audience the best show, which should always be the goal of any performer and any company, to make them see an awesome show and all want to spend their money, if not more, the next time when they come back. That's how you build a company.
And, well, they did leave us with a little something, because after Dusty Rhodes had cleared the ring, and I know Frank, he's on the boat right now. He's standing on his bed and he's cheering. Rhino came out and just obliterates the American Dream.
Yep.
So we're big fans of Rhino here at the show now, so, gore.
And I've been in the ring with Rhino before.
Oh, I know you
I
have.
actually faced him in the finals of the CATRD Cup in Ontario. It's at an event called CATRD Fest. I faced Rhino and Tommy Dreamer in the finals. I think it was back in 2012 or 2013. And that was an awesome experience. Unfortunately, came out on the losing end. Ate one hell of a gore. But to get to say I went in there against two ECW originals and took the fight to them like only Jeremy Prophet can do, is an experience I'll always remember. And it's always like that when you get to do battle with guys who've been on that big stage. It's it's your chance to go in there and show them what you can do. And the match did end up getting a little bit hardcore, and there were some chairs and tables and some plunder, but I don't shy away from that, because you gotta give the people violence, and that's what ECW was always good at doing. And again, we talk about that unpredictability. Who'd have thought going to that show that night you're gonna see Rhino gore Dusty Rhodes? I mean,
at an ECW show,
yeah,
in Alabama.
Yeah, it always impressed me with Dusty that he was able to seamlessly kind of move around through these companies, even going to WCW at the time with the NWO, and then to ECW, then in WCW also feuding with Ric Flair in WCW. In the later days of the company, later years. Dusty always brought something to the table, and I think what was cool is that he was always able to reinvent himself for every audience, and I think it's something not a lot of wrestlers do, in that you kind of get the same version of them everywhere they perform, whether on the independent scene or when they change companies to another major company. It's one thing to say you take your act on the road, but also you got to conform to the audience that you're performing in front of. And to me, Dusty never seemed out of place in ECW. When at the time, if you were to tell me, yeah, Dusty Rhodes is going to be in ECW, I'd have been like, well, I don't know how Dusty Rhodes, that we see in WCW, the NWA, WWF, how that's going to fit, how that's going to work. But Dusty was able to be legit for all of those audiences. And I think that just spoke to his level of creativity and of psychology when it came to professional wrestling.
When did you first get introduced to Dusty Rhodes? What was your first incarnation of the American Dream that you remember?
It may very well have been with the NWO. It was the first time that I saw. Yeah, because I started watching wrestling in 90, 93, 94. We only had access to WWE here unless you could find a VHS somewhere.
Yeah.
And I've obviously gone back and studied wrestling. It's I like to say I have a PhD, master's degree many times over in the art of professional wrestling, a black belt of many dans, because I enjoy watching wrestling, and I feel that you can learn from watching anything. You can watch backyard wrestling and you can learn. But that's when I was first introduced to Dusty Rhodes, was commentator in WCW, member of the NWO, and then through learning more about wrestling, finding out, oh yeah, okay, so he's the father of Goldust, who's in WWE, and looking back on matches, he's had this storied history throughout the NWA. He was, the working man's wrestler, the son of a plumber, all of that. Then he was wrestling in polka dots and kind of doing the same thing, teaming with Sapphire.
Oh, yeah.
And
that was how I met him.
Making a lot of great moments. And I actually had the chance to meet Dusty Rhodes on a couple of occasions. Oh, nice. I had the chance to try out with FCW in 2000, late 2000, the latest possible of 2009, which was December 2009. And he was one of the people evaluating there, listening to promos. And I'll always remember that at the end of it, I asked him, how did I do? Because I wanted some feedback on everything. I actually thought I was going to get hired at that tryout, and unfortunately, it wasn't in the cards for me. But I do think that it was an outstanding moment, and if I had to do that tryout over again, I probably wouldn't be able to do as good as I did then, despite everything I know. It's just the stars aligned, everything went so well. I was beloved. And Dusty, I remember him saying to me when I went to him, I said, "What'd you think of the promo?" He said, "Well, I'll be honest with you, kid. And now I don't do the best Dusty impression. I'm not Sting. I'm not DDP. I'd say they're probably 1 and 2 for best Dusty
Paul
impressions.
Heyman has a good one too.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
It'd be pretty hard to beat that one that Sting did a few weeks ago there on AEW.
Yeah, that
but DDP's is also pretty spot on. And he was like, "Well, kid, there's a few things technically we got to correct, but man, you brought it. You brought it up there, kid." And that felt good. It felt good getting that praise from Dusty, who, was someone who was a true wordsmith on the microphone and able to propel himself to the highest levels of the wrestling business through the power of the spoken word, which is something that, we try to do. Well, maybe not so much you, but what I try to do. If anyone within the sounds of my voice here's what I have to say. I use this as a platform to be able to give people the brutal realities of wrestling as seen from the point of a grizzled, young, talented performer like myself. And I think I've talked a lot about me. I'm going to throw it back over to you because we don't have enough time here to talk about all my run-ins with everybody. So let's get back on track.
All right, so Dusty Rhodes eats the gore. Up next, ladies and gentlemen, we have New Jack versus Angel. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with New Jack's work, I want you to pause the episode right now, head over to YouTube, just type it in, and click on the first 2 videos you see, and that's all you'll need to know.
And hopefully it's not going to be the video of him stabbing the guy 13 times or however many times it was that he stabbed him.
Beating up the minor.
Yeah, that hey, look, something's happened, wrong place, wrong time. I don't think
that wasn't his fault.
I don't think it was.
No.
And if people want to crucify me over that, well, what can I say? Don't get into the wrestling business too young. Don't lie, and don't expect to have your way with New Jack.
Yeah.
I only had the opportunity to meet New Jack once. We were on a show together in the state of Maine, and I saw him put a hurtin' on some young boys. And New Jack, what I think is outstanding about New Jack is the fact that he's not the biggest guy. You meet him, you don't know who he is. He still has a presence about him. And he came across legit, threatening. I know grown people, guys 10 times my size, that would not want to step in the ring with New Jack. Now, I wouldn't mind stepping in the ring with New Jack because that's just me. So if someone out there wants to book it, you see some money and Black Dynamite stepping up to New Jack, hey, I'm all for it. I got a ton of respect for this guy. But, he is feared. And
with good reason.
I think that it speaks to how little the divide between the real New Jack, between, Jerome and actual New Jack is. I mean, people don't know where the character stops and the human being begins. But that is a testament to a good performer. That whether you want to call it method acting, whether you want to call it just, being that legit. I mean, New Jack carries himself with a presence that is much larger than he is. And to me was always an attraction in ECW because of that element of unpredictability. Is this going to be a work or somebody going to die?
Well, that was the thing. When I saw him coming out, I was like, holy shit. It's daylight and I'm gonna watch a murder. Okay, all right, let's buckle down for this. So at one point he brings out his little carrot of goodies.
That was low key racist of you.
No,
I'm joking. I'm bugging you.
Because if you've seen a New Jack match, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
See, I remember when New Jack threw one of the gentlemen who was around here, Vic Grimes, when he threw him out of the balcony.
This was actually 2 months before that. This was part of the feud between the Baldies and New Jack. Vic Grimes got involved in the match, actually.
Yeah.
But nothing big.
And he tossed Vic Grimes out of that balcony. And what a sight that was. That was like before the days of GIFs on the internet, where that was a clip that went viral without clips going viral being a thing. Seeing him get tossed, this 400, 500-pound guy, just maybe a few pounds lighter than yourself, getting tossed out of the balcony like that,
give or take.
Overshooting some tables, and it's a miracle that he wasn't like a quadriplegic after that happened.
Yeah, no, he's a fucking wild man. It's great. It was great TV. New Jack, he comes out with his little bag of goodies, and at one point they say that like he threw everything at him but the kitchen sink. New Jack pulls out a mailbox with the pole with the mailbox on it, and he winds up and he cranks Angel with it just right across the spine. And this made me laugh because then you hear Joey Lee going, Joey Styles going, if there's any outgoing mail in that mailbox, it's definitely not our checks. And if you know why ECW closed its doors, that's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, a lot of people not getting paid, but you know what? The company had to stay afloat.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to it, yeah, people might have not got paid, but you know they got the exposure of being in ECW. I don't think that anyone was intentionally screwed out of their money. Maybe they were. Maybe I can't speak for everybody. I wasn't there.
I wasn't there.
You know, I've had some conversations with Paul Heyman back in 2012. Actually, Heyman took the time to speak to me. You know, there as an extra at WWE Raw here at the Bell Center. Actually met him the day before when he came to my gym. Wanting to tan, and we had a good little conversation there. All I can say on my end is, to me, Paul Heyman was a man of his word, because he told me, you know what, I'll see you at the taping. I'll make some time to talk to you. Man gave me half an hour to 45 minutes of his time that he really didn't have to. We had a great conversation. Who knows? Maybe I should get back in touch with Paul. He seems to have some good pull nowadays.
He seems to be the man you want to know.
But not the man you want paying you.
No, absolutely not. You want somebody else's name on those checks. So, New Jack actually lost that match, but as our producer said, it built up till later, and I'm sure we'll end up reviewing that later on down the road.
Sometimes it happens in wrestling that you can lose a match, but you know the people can win. So you give an entertaining performance. Who cares if you win or lose?
Yeah, I mean technically it was 3 against 1. He had the Baldies there that kept running in,
and it was a very entertaining match. It can't be denied, as is always with New Jack. I mean, it's chaos personified. Yeah. Also, the fact that his entrance music plays the entire duration of the match, that in itself was a sight to behold. I do wish I would have got to see more New Jack matches live. Unfortunately, we were only booked on that same show that one time, but who knows what the future holds.
Hey, future's bright. Up next.
Especially here next to your bald head with that light glaring
Exactly.
off it.
Well, I just shaved it for you, too.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see if you can get some darker glasses. So up next, we have RVD versus Sabu.
Watch how I move. I get in the groove. Taking the lights out. That's what I do. Shut it down. Competition wanted me to fall. Repetition how I get it off. Demolition when I set it off. Full on collision towards the wall. I'm in my zone, this my arena. A deadly idea. Hooks coming in and they'll give you a seizure. Pack of hyenas. I'm in my ways, I'm in my bag. These are the days, dreams all I have. Don't be afraid, giving me a wrath. Better go stand up, don't sit in the back. All of my negative energy felt like my life was in jeopardy. Rapping my only known remedy. Every day focused on being a better me. Clinically crazy is why I need therapy, yeah. Sick in the hair, wild. She like how I dress, style. I got the best smile. About to go blow viral. Falling, I won't collapse. I cannot double back. Train, I be on my track. I'm taking all of that. Coming in clean, I'ma make a new to running man. I want the money and power. Not coming to eat, devour.
For the TV title, with Bill Alfonso being the middleman, running back and forth between the two of them. So it starts off, we had, actually before the even match began, Bill Alfonso, he runs into RVD's locker room. Oh, it smells good in here, and just closes the window. Little tongue.
He opens it up. He goes,
Yeah, no, yeah, he did. He closed the window in Sabu's locker room. That's right. Yeah, he opens it up.
He goes, you gotta air it out in here. We gotta do a promo before the match. Open the window in here.
And RVD just looks fucking like he's having a great time. He looks like how I'm gonna look after the show. Great match. I think this was the best match on the card. This should have been the main event.
Well, I mean, I know a lot of people look back at ECW, and obviously you have a television title, and you had Rob Van Dam with, I think, the longest television title reign, if I'm not mistaken, in ECW history. And that speaks to the strength of a championship, that someone holds on to it a long time.
It was also the longest championship reign at the time in all of wrestling.
I gotta say, Bruno, you're doing a much better job than he is. Do you want to maybe come host the thing with me?
You gotta understand, Bruno grew up on ECW.
Hey, you watch how you talk to Bruno. Yeah, he's the man when it comes to ECW.
He is Mr. ECW.
Yeah. But all that to say, you know, the television title, it had a lot of prestige to it because it was defended so many times and in great quality matches. I mean, when I think of ECW, I think of Rob Van Dam first and foremost. Everyone's going to have their favorites. Everyone's going to, you know, talk about the Sandmans, the Tommy Dreamers, Sabus. No disrespect to those guys, but Van Dam would bring it every single night. And that's the reason why Van Dam was able to transition into the WWE and become such a star, because he had this stellar body of work. You knew when Rob Van Dam's match was coming up, you can't miss that, or you're going to miss something special, especially when he has a dance partner like Sabu. I mean, these two, they started off, they trained together, and they came up through the ranks together. So you knew once they got this big stage, prime time, pay-per-view, they were not going to let you down.
Yeah, they really told a hell of a story for this one because they touched on how they were both trained by the Sheik, Sabu's uncle, well, the original Sheik, Sabu's uncle, and then RVD cuts a promo saying that he's the Sheik's favorite wrestler, just to fucking get to him. But the story they told in the ring was amazing, just with the reversals and how well they know each other. Like at one point, Van Dam goes for the Van Daminator. He catches Sabu catches the chair, but he ducks. RVD misses it, and Sabu takes him out. Later on, they revisit that. RVD throws him the chair. Sabu ducks, but RVD had faked the kick and then catches him later. And then just stuff like that. Like at one point, Sabu goes for a Frankensteiner off the top rope. RVD sees it coming and just kind of hooks the ropes.
Yeah, it speaks to the familiarity of two wrestlers that, when you have that kind of chemistry, I think of like myself and Mike Bailey, that we can have those kinds of matches where it's like, I know what he does, he knows what I do, and we can go in there and then we can play around with that. We can, okay, we know what the people are going to expect, but now let's show them something different. Let's show them some counters. And, you don't really get that with just about any opponent. So when you got two guys that are motivated, they know each other, they're familiar with each other, and they want to, above all else, make sure that the people are getting the very best match. And not just the people in attendance, but the people watching at home on pay-per-view that paid their hard-earned money to see this. You really get something special in there. And I point to a match with Rob Van Dam and Sabu from TNA in, I believe it was 2012. I think it was 2012, maybe 2013.
When they were doing their ECW resurgence
yeah, the
there?
ECW, the EV2, I think they called it. And these guys had a phenomenal match even then. Even both of them, older than they were here. Maybe not necessarily in their primes, although, they can still go and still deliver better than a lot of the young guys out there. But, these are two guys who were just, as they say, proper rivals. Like, they were made to be in the ring with each other, whether as a hell of a tag team or as opponents like we saw here at Guilty as Charged.
And they did some crazy shit, too. Like, stuff you'll never see now well, except maybe at the in the IWS or in the Indies, but never on, like, TV anymore. Like, they did this one spot where Sabu sets a table up on the barrier, like, just right in front of the fans, and lays Sabu on, or no, sorry, RVD gets laid down on it, and Sabu dives off the top, over the top rope onto him and basically crushes his sternum almost. It looked like he just crushed his sternum through it. It was wild.
Yeah, and that's what's good. Like I said, when you got that familiarity, there's a certain level of trust that you're willing to put your body on the line and to give your physical being to an opponent because you trust them and you know that, hey, you know what? This may hurt a little, but it's going to be worth it when we hear those people chanting, when those people are saying that this match was something that, inspired them. This match was the best match on the show. And that's one of the things, I'll let you in on one of the little inside secrets with IWS. I know you brought them up, but every single show, we have a meeting before the show, and I think it's awesome because the big boss, PCP Manny, will always say, guys, on this show, there is no main event. Every match is the main event. Everyone is expected to go out and steal the show. And some people, that falls on deaf ears. Some people, okay, it's a rah-rah speech. It's kind of, and they just go back to their corner and they do what they want. But for this guy, when I hear that, that tells me, you know what? The gloves are off. My match is going to be the most memorable thing. It motivates me. It pumps me up to want to go out there and make sure that the people remember what I do in there more than anyone else. And I think that ECW also cultivated that kind of atmosphere with their talent where everyone went out wanting to be the best match. And, it was survival of the fittest. But when you get a show like that where everyone is chomping at the bit, everyone's ready to go in there and kill themselves to have a great match, you get a hell of a show once it's all said and done.
Yeah, and the fans notice that too. They like some fans, you can really notice when a wrestler's really fucking just he's giving it his all as opposed to the guy who's just there for a paycheck.
Yeah, and it's almost it's in anything, that you need that kind of motivation. Like when I come on here and I want to have a great show, I want people to remember everything I say. Then you come in here and you phone it in week out. No, I'm just playing. I'm just playing, but it's the same kind of thing. When I'm on here, I want this to be the best show. I want this to be the podcast everyone's listening to, and everyone to follow me at Jeremy Prophet on Twitter, and to, want to watch more and more of us the next time and the next time, regardless of what kind of show we put on.
Well, I'll tell you right now, after reading some of the comments from our last episode, the live that we did, you got a couple of female fans in the out there that made their voices heard. So, hey.
Well, look, I mean, what can I say? The bar's not raised pretty high. I'm here next to you.
That's because I'm not doing the show with my shirt off. That would be a completely different story.
Well, the one time you did,
you'd have to hit the gym some more if I fucking took my shirt off right now.
Well, I mean, we don't need to show the world, your estrogen-filled body that's 90% carbohydrates. But nonetheless, sometimes it's better to have things that are how can I say it? They may taste great, but they're less filling, like this guy.
All right, up next we have the Impact Players and Don Marie. So that's Just Incredible and Lance Storm, if I could be serious for a minute, versus Raven and Tommy Dreamer for the ECW Tag Team Championship.
Yep.
Just Incredible, friend of the show. We've had him on recently. Friend of yours, too.
Yep.
Hell of a match. Hell of a match. And we had Francine there, too, which is always great to see.
But no love for Don Marie?
She's okay. I wasn't a big Don Marie fan. Like her... We all watched the video she did with Tori Wilson. That's another episode, but yeah, Don Marie was. I like Don Marie.
We're gonna do a whole episode on Don Marie and Tori Wilson.
On that one clip.
We're gonna do a whole episode on.
Do a whole episode. Trust me, I can do it.
I believe you.
But yeah, hell of a match. We had Raven and Tommy Dreamer. That's right, folks. All you ECW fans, they teamed up together.
Which is unbelievable considering the lengthy feud that they had. One that, really helped to catapult ECW as not only a company that brought great action, but brought great storytelling. And, that was epic between those two, which speaks kind of to their wrestling style. I mean, both guys, great storytellers in the ring. I think Raven is an exceptional storyteller in the ring. Very talented, extremely talented. Ever since his days as Johnny Flamingo to Raven, just the fact he's able to pull off two diversely different characters like that and managed to always stay relevant. I feel Raven was a guy who always had his finger on the pulse of what was happening in wrestling and managed to reinvent himself, stay relevant, and rise to the top levels of wherever we saw him. Even in the WWE where, some may feel he didn't get a fair shake. I remember when Raven was pretty much the star of Sunday Night Heat. He took a C-level, D-level show and made me want to watch it week after week because what he brought to the table was so intriguing. So I've always liked Raven, even though as I never got the chance to meet him, I never got the chance to work with him. But Raven would have been a guy, if I was in ECW, I would have loved to be involved in something that he did. He just always managed to be involved in something that was catchy, trendy, caught your attention. Even like Raven's Flock, where he would sit there at ringside and you wondered what's going to happen. When is this guy going to get involved? He just knew that, and I think it speaks to Scott Levy as a performer and how talented he was. It's not necessarily what you do in the ring, but it's the psychology and what you bring to the table as a professional and as a performer. So I always liked that about Raven. I think the idea of him and Dreamer teaming up in this match was really cool to see that happen. I mean, that'd be like if Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes teamed up, which I don't think ever happened.
I don't think so.
No, never did.
No,
I could be wrong, but I don't think it ever did. The closest it came to happening was I think there was one Taboo Tuesday or Cyber Sunday where they could have done that again. I think against the Spirit Squad, and people ended up voting for Piper instead. And that was the big caveat of it, was that Rhodes and Flair never teamed. But I always find it cool when two rivals actually do team up. It's one of the storylines in wrestling I like to see. I even like to see it in TV in general, just to see what it gives, And
it's a different dynamic.
I've had that happen where I've teamed with guys that I've had rivalries with, but here it was not only a good pairing and an intriguing pairing, but it led to a hell of a match. And the Impact Players, if you ask me, best tag team in ECW history. No disrespect to the Pitbulls, no disrespect to the Dudleys, but for me, I love the Impact Players. I mean, look, the Dudleys, let's call a spade a spade. They achieved a lot of great things. They won championships pretty much everywhere they went, and they were a career tag team. But I enjoyed watching the Impact Players, Just Incredible and Lance Storm, two guys who I personally feel, could have achieved a lot more in other places if the companies had been behind them as much as they were in ECW, because, man, they were on fire. They were something I tuned in to see. They were a well-oiled machine in that ring. And, I mean, you talk about the it factor. Them as a team, they had it, no doubt.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And they fucking brought it this entire match, too. I remember just even at the beginning of the match, Just Incredible, he sets up a chair in the middle of the ring, and he does Raven's shtick where he toe holds Tommy Dreamer into the chair, but it wasn't onto the part that you sit on. It was on the edge, on the top. Chair goes flying out of the ring. Later on in the match, Raven gets in the ring. He does the snot rag spot. He throws it in. I think it was the guy with Just Incredible. Jason, his name was.
I believe the actual name was Nasal Napkin Nevermore. I kid you not.
That sounds about right. Hits him with it. And then at one point, Dawn Marie and Francine get in, and they're rolling around, and we have the cameraman with the perfect shot, with the upskirt camera that they kept mentioning throughout the entire pay-per-view.
Let's not objectify women here during this Me Too speaking out era. That's an inappropriate comment that I need to call your chauvinistic ass out on. I think really has no place in this broadcast. We're not going to objectify women in talking about what a great pay-per-view this was. But nonetheless, two very intricate parts of this match, Dawn Marie and Francine. And I think that, they completed in the case of Francine, she completed the package there in this storyline. And then we obviously had that great low blow that took out our friend, Just Incredible. Thankfully, he was able to recover from that and have a few children.
Yep.
But quite a low blow that then led to ultimately the cat fight, which became a staple of ECW with Joey Styles yelling at the top of his lungs, "Cat fight, cat fight." And I think that with ECW, you never knew what you were going to get. So having all those combustible elements around the ring was just like icing on the cake to an already stellar match.
And like you said, Francine hits the low blow on Just Incredible later on in the match. Just Incredible tees up, goes right after her with the kendo stick or the Singapore cane. Raven dives in the way, takes the Singapore cane shot, leads to a tombstone. We got new ECW Tag Team Champions.
Yep. And it was a great moment for the company. Everyone looked fantastic in that match, told a hell of a story. That's what wrestling is supposed to be. When you can go in there, do a great match, and even if you lose the match, you still come out of it ahead because the people are intrigued to want to see where you go next from there. Yeah. And so this match not only delivered in terms of the action, but in terms of the storytelling, and it left the people wanting more. Exactly what professional wrestling should always be.
And there's hardly any storytelling nowadays.
Well, I mean, that's subjective. I think storytelling has become different. And a lot of times you have to have the backing of management and the bookers and the writers to effectively be able to tell that story. Wrestling is a lot more than just pairing up names on a card and saying, okay, you guys are going to go out and wrestle each other. He wins, he wins, he wins. Storytelling is an intricate process that not everyone has a mastery of. And, I kind of look at it just from my perspective. Like if I was a company like, the WWE and I have hundreds of writers on a payroll, why not assign the continuity of everybody to these writers? And then they can assess, hey, this person faced this person. What should be the next direction of their character? But continuity is non-existent in the WWE. And that's why you'll see things like people having rivalries and then suddenly they're okay teaming with each other. And it's just an insult to the intelligence of the audience. There should be continuity. There should be story progression, character progression. People should grow from their wins and losses. Unfortunately, we don't see that. I guess in an environment like ECW, where you had someone like Paul Heyman who could just, handle, micromanage everything and be the brain of all of that, you're able to do that. But unfortunately, today, we don't see that, and we don't see stories like this play out with logical conclusions.
Yeah, it's a damn shame, too. Because
I'm sorry if that intellectually went, over your head, but I'm sure our audience...
No, you said
totally
you said wrestling in there, so I understood.
Yeah, I mentioned women too.
I like women.
Yeah,
you like women?
Of course.
Who doesn't like women?
Who doesn't like women?
Exactly. So we're gonna move on to the main event now. We have, which I said this before. I think RVD and Sabu should have done the main event. Regardless, Spike Dudley versus Mike Awesome for the ECW World Championship. Now, the build-up to this story was that the week prior, Mike Awesome, and listen carefully. He knocked Spike Dudley's girlfriend's teeth down her throat. That's right. And Spike Dudley cut one hell of a promo. Paul Heyman tells him at one point, he tells him, I think, stop acting. And then Spike Dudley just loses his shit. He starts throwing a chair. He's kicking things. He's like, I'm not acting. I'm going to fucking kill Mike. It was they sold the hell out of the show.
Yeah. And what you might not remember, but I'm sure you do, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, is that Spike had been built as the Giant Killer for a long time. I mean, I remember one of the first matches I saw on TNN on one of those tapes was Spike wrestling, I think the first one I saw was him in PN News. And PN News must have been about 300 pounds more than Spike Dudley. And Spike, in typical Spike Dudley fashion, takes him out with a kick in the groin and an acid drop. Saw him beat Kamala the same way. So you knew when Spike was fighting someone bigger than him, it's like he had the advantage. And I think that was a cool, unique character. I kind of feel like Orange Cassidy in AEW, kind of had the potential to be that type of character too, where it was a guy who was smaller, but would kind of be like a snake's mongoose to a bigger, oversized, supersized wrestler. I love that about Spike Dudley. And I think it was cool when he finally went up against Mike Awesome, and I believe did the exact same thing to him in the build-up to the match, saying, now I want to step up to the champion super heavyweight, and I'm going to take him out. And that's why it was an intriguing match, because you saw Spike do these squash matches against big guys. Now, finally, he's against the biggest, maybe not the biggest, but definitely the baddest in Mike Awesome. And what a match they had. And looking at these two on paper, you wouldn't think Spike stood a chance against them. But if you watched ECW, you knew there was a good chance Spike could win that. And I think that Mike Awesome, just from a stylistic standpoint, I think it was cool because Mike Awesome was a big guy, but he was an agile big guy. Yeah. A lot of agility, and a lot of intensity and power. He combined skills really well. I'm not to say I patent myself after Mike Awesome, but if I'm wrestling someone like Spike Dudley, I'm going to definitely use my power advantage and my hard hitting and whatnot. And also, if you want to take it to the air, I got some agility myself. That's what I think made Mike Awesome unique, was that he had all of those attributes. He had a full toolbox of weapons that he could use against his opponents of any and all size. And here you had Spike Dudley, who, he was built as the Giant Killer. So when that finally comes to crescendo, which way is it going to go? That's why I think, despite the fact that talent-wise, RVD and Sabu, far better match. There's no denying of that. Those two, much better talents than these two. However, the story behind it was one that you just couldn't turn away from. Could the ultimate of ultimate underdogs beat the dominant monster champion?
Sadly, he didn't pull it off, but you know what? He had a hell of a match, though. Like, some of the spots they did in this, hopefully we can get it going here. When Spike Dudley's on the outside of the ring and you got Mike Awesome, he's going to go to the top rope and jump over the barrier into Spike Dudley. Like, you don't see 300-plus pound guys doing that.
No.
Especially back then.
No, Mike Awesome was phenomenal. Even from his days in FMW in Japan when he was the Gladiator Mike Awesome, he could bring it. And like his matches, yeah, let's watch this clip here.
If you want to just finish your thought before we watch it.
Oh, no. I mean, we can watch it because right here, I'm sure what's going through his mind is, I'm going to kill this guy with this. I might just kill myself in the process. Oh, that was probably in poor taste. I shouldn't have said that, knowing how he unfortunately did take his own life. Yep. Which is a shame too. And it speaks to a subject that, we talked about off air, how, at the time ECW, we enjoyed watching a lot of the violence and everything, but, concussions are a real problem in the wrestling business, and CTE is very much a real thing. Yeah. Not saying that Mike Awesome in any way was experiencing that, but, anyone who did these kinds of matches, took chair shots, even that great dive that we saw him do there, he wiped out and smacked his head off the mat, not even the mat, off the cement floor.
Concrete, yeah.
And, we didn't know then what we know now about how fragile the human brain is. We are not the woodpecker with our tongue that wraps entirely around our brain to sustain shock absorption. And perhaps it's a sad note to end the review on, but I mean, it is a reality of wrestling, and I'm here to be the harbinger of truth and speak reality. And that's that, all us wrestlers out there, we got to be careful with our brains. We got to be careful with the bumps we take. Our risks have got to be calculated because, wrestling is life, but wrestling can also cost you your life if you're not safe. And I think that's something that when we look back on this, there's a lot of stuff I look back on in ECW with a bit of a different eye, because as a performer, who's never sustained a concussion in his life, thank God, never had an injury, and hopefully never does. But we may appear invincible,
knock on wood,
but we're not. We're very much human beings. We can seem superhuman, but we're just as human as the person sitting in the audience paying their hard-earned money to watch that. And I would hope that if anything, fans looking back on ECW, they can be impressed by the athleticism and what these guys are willing to do, but know that these were guys who wanted to provide for their families and make it in the wrestling business. And to those that aren't with us anymore, We thank them for what they contributed, and hopefully the biggest contribution can be that my generation can be a lot smarter and not end up in a situation where this business, this passion that we love, ends up costing us our actual life and livelihood. And I didn't mean to take this down a darker path, but it's reality. And we watch this, we can be entertained, but what we're doing in there, we're putting our lives on the line every single time. So hopefully fans can be cognizant of that and can have a greater appreciation for, not just the show, but the actual showmen, the human beings behind the characters.
Well, speaking from the back to end it off, like on my end is like, after you saying that and us watching it as 30-year-olds, I think we appreciate what they did in ECW even more now, and what they put so much on the line back then, and like it's crazy to look on.
Like just the chair shots alone.
Yeah.
Forever hardcore ECW. Yeah. ECW. That was for you, Vato.
Shout out to Vato. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. Overall, though, pay-per-view wise, it was a great show. ECW, they always put on a great show back in the day. Guys, again, if you've never seen an ECW pay-per-view, do yourself a favor, go back and look at it. It's, at the time, it's groundbreaking. It was like a dirty secret almost.
Yep. It was as underground got, and it was good. It was
so good.
When I would watch an episode of Monday Night Raw or Nitro, and I had a dejected feeling. Like I think of those Nitros that went off the air where we didn't get a finish to a match, or it's just a big schmoz, or it ends in a never-ending 20-minute Hogan promo saying nothing, just standing there looking like a hot dog
beatdown,
looking like a hot dog on steroids. I would be so glad when Friday would roll around and I'd be able to get my ECW tape and be able to actually watch entertaining wrestling, great stories, no BS, just good action. And I think that's always going to be ECW's legacy for those who were fans, knowing that this was your alternative that gave you what you wanted.
And remember, wrestling is life.
This is Frank Jofo for Jofo in the Ring, and we would like to take this opportunity to share with you our sponsor, Balboa Bakery. If you're in the mood for fresh baked focaccia, an array of sliced cold cuts and cannolis to die for, and of course, the finest Italian products known to man, look no further than Balboa Bakery. Go the distance with Balboa Bakery. Located at 102 Saint Jean-Baptiste Boulevard, Local 52 in Chateauguay. Here we go!